Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Isn't it funny? That voice doesn't just show up when you're playing small or when you're doing something considered safe. But the moment you dare to enter new territory, that voice gets vicious. You think you're struggling with imposter syndrome? Nah, you just have a bruised ego. I said it, and I'm only saying it to you because I had to say the same shit to myself before. You think you're battling with deep insecurity, but you're really upset that you're no longer the big fish in a small pond. You were comfortable when you knew the game, and you were confident when you felt ahead. But now, you've stepped into bigger territory, and suddenly you don't feel like that person anymore. But here's the thing. That uncomfortable, exposed, and slightly awkward feeling you're wrestling with right now, it's not a red flag. It's actually a green light. So it's not that you ended up shrinking, but instead you just leveled up. And that friction, you're feeling right now, that's what actually happens when you've entered into a space you're meant to grow into. Stay with me, because by the end of this, I'm gonna show you exactly why feeling like a fraud is actually proof you're right where you need to be, and how to stop letting that feeling push you backwards when you should be claiming your space. Let's dive in. You know what's wild? Imposter syndrome is not really about skill, and it's not about worth either. It's about this weird moment where who you used to be clashes with who you're trying to become. That little space in between, that's where doubt slips in. Because your old self, that version of you that had everything figured out and felt like it was in the safe zone of life, yeah, that version doesn't know what to do here. And honestly, that version of you is probably losing it. So when you step into something new, boom, here comes imposter syndrome. Not because you're failing, but because you've entered a room where that version of you has never been in before. You can think about it like this. Once you get a new job, day one, suddenly everyone's talking. Like, they've been doing this shit for years. They know the lingo, they know the workflow, they even know the unspoken rules. And you're sitting there thinking, what the f*** am I even doing here? You feel small, slightly out of place, almost like you snuck into a party you weren't invited to. Or maybe it's that creative thing where you finally hit publish. You share your art, your voice, your vision, and almost instantly that voice creeps in again. Who do you think you are? Why would anyone care? That annoying little voice, it gets louder because your mind doesn't care about your potential. It only cares about keeping you safe. Because familiar equals safe. And anything that's unknown equals a threat. So yeah, stepping into new territory, to your old self, it feels like danger. Like death almost. Because deep down, it knows it can't come with you where you're going. So that voice, that tension, it's not proof that you don't belong. It's actually proof that you're crossing over into something you're supposed to become. And the sooner you stop seeing that discomfort as failure, the sooner you'll see it for what it really is. Your invitation. An invitation to stop, making deals with fear, to stop waiting for perfection, and to finally step into a version of you that's ready, even if you don't fully believe it yet. So let's unpack how to actually deal with this when it hits. Because overcoming imposter syndrome doesn't start with pushing it away or pretending it isn't there. It starts with understanding exactly what it is and what it's actually trying to tell you. And here's an easy blueprint to follow to help you. So the first thing we gotta do is label and accept it. So when that voice shows up again, and trust me, it will, you can't make it deeper than what it needs to be. So no need to argue with it, no need to spiral, no need to make it mean something dramatic like, shit, I'm not cut out for this. No, just call it for what it is. Label it. Literally, name that voice in your head as that stupid imposter syndrome. And I know it sounds basic as hell, but it's huge. Because the moment you name it, you create distance from it. You separate you from that thought. You're not the voice. You're just the person observing and hearing the voice. And the second that you do that, you take your power back. Now, instead of being inside the storm, you're now watching it. You can choose not to follow where it's trying to drag you. And once you normalize it, once you stop making the feeling mean something's wrong with you, that's when you actually start working with it. Hence why it's important to reframe it and turn it into a signpost. And that brings us to step number 2. So what actually happens next is you've caught the voice, you've named it, and you're no longer inside the storm, but rather you're watching it. That alone is important. But this is where most people tend to slip up. They think, okay, cool, I named it, but I feel awkward and out of place and I don't belong here. That's when they start pulling back. But let me stop you right there and say this. That voice, that little feeling, it doesn't mean that you're in the wrong place. All it means is that you're new here. That's all. You're supposed to feel a little clumsy when you're new. You're supposed to feel a little unsure. And you're not behind. You're just early. And early always feels a little bit weird in the beginning. So when that voice says, I don't belong here, you flip it and you say, I'm supposed to be here. I'm just new here. That's your power move. Because when you stop being new, you release all that pressure to already have it all figured out. And you let yourself just be in the process. And that's where growth really happens. So you don't need to let the voice push you out. Let it just remind you that you're right where you need to be. Just learning how to stand a little taller in it. And standing tall isn't just about showing up. It's about honoring yourself for even being brave enough to step into it. And once you can do that, you then need to validate your effort and not just your results. So once you've got caught up with the voice, you flip the script, you're starting to own that you belong here, even if it feels a little bit off. Sometimes you might feel kind of shaky. Like, I know I'm in the room. I know I've earned this, but why don't I feel solid yet? Yeah, that part. It's usually because without even realizing it, you're still measuring yourself by how smooth you look, by how confident you sound, whether people are clapping for you yet or not. And when those things aren't happening fast enough, it's easy to start doubting yourself again. Like, maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe I'm still faking it. I need you to hear this. That's not how confidence works. Confidence doesn't walk in the room first. What walks in first is courage. And a lot of awkward, messy reps. The only way confidence shows up is by proving yourself over and over again. I show up even when I feel off. I stay in the room even when I'm unsure. So no, the goal right now isn't to crush it and is not to impress anyone. It's really just to stay there, to show up again and again and again. So take another rep, even if your hands are shaking. So if your brain starts spinning with, I'm not good enough, pause and ask yourself instead, did I show up today? Did I lean in even though I felt weird or small or unsure? Because that's what actually builds confidence, quietly, slowly, and in the background. And giving yourself credit for that, that's strategy. After all, the world can only give you what you give to yourself. And once you start setting the tone like that, you then need to collect evidence and build proof against the lie. So you're showing up, you're not backing down, you're actually starting to own the fact that, yeah, you're allowed to be here. But let's be real. That negative voice, it's persistent. It doesn't just disappear because you had one good day. It will always find ways to creep in, especially when you're tired or something doesn't land well, or you go a few days without hearing, "You're doing amazing" type of feedback. I know it sucks. And that's why, you need receipts. And it doesn't have to be some dramatic success story or awards or anything flashy. I mean, just, the little reminders, the compliments people sent you, screenshots of someone saying your work really helped them, moments where you showed up scared but did it anyways. Start keeping small stuff like that. Like, seriously. Make a folder in your phone. Write it down in your notes. Stick it in front of the fridge if you have to. Even when that voice comes back with, "See, you're still not doing enough. You're still not there yet." You can literally pull out the proof and go, "Actually, here's what's real and here's what I accomplished." And look, your brain is not always going to remember every little detail, especially when you're in your feelings. But those receipts, those facts, they hold you down. The more you collect, the harder it is for that voice to even run the show. And the best part, once you stop waiting for proof that you're worthy and you start creating it, you move different. And that takes us to the last tactic, the one that makes everything feel lighter. And you stop making it about you and start making it about something bigger. You shift from me to mission, essentially detaching yourself from your ego. All right, so now you've collected the proof, you've got the receipts, you're not just showing up, you're, actually starting to back yourself. But here's the final shift that really changes the game. You gotta stop making it all about you. And I say this with love because we've all done it. I've done it plenty of times. When imposter syndrome creeps in, your brain goes straight to, how do I look? Do I sound smart enough? What if I mess this up and everyone sees it? All of that, it's all ego. It's fear dressed up in perfectionism. But here's the truth. When it's all about you, that fear has room to grow and fester. But when it's about something bigger, the fear gets quiet. Because now it's not all about looking polished, but it's about being in service. It's about asking, who can I help today? What value am I actually bringing? How can I show up for the version of me that used to need this? So the next time you catch yourself spiraling, you gotta shift the question. Instead of asking, am I enough? Ask, who am I here to serve? Because when you anchor into that, you stop performing and you start contributing. It's almost like you give fear way less to work with. You don't have to be perfect to help someone. You just have to be present and show up. And when that becomes the goal, imposter syndrome, it loses its grip. Because suddenly it's not about being seen. It's about making an impact. So let's bring it in full circle. You feeling like a fraud, it was never the problem. And that little voice in your head, it wasn't trying to take you out. It was just a signal, a signpost that you're stretching and you're stepping into a version of yourself you haven't fully met yet. And yeah, it feels kind of shaky, uncertain, and uncomfortable. But that's not failure, that's growth. You've been thinking imposter syndrome was the enemy, but it's actually proof that you're in the right room. You're just still trying to learn how to stand tall in it. So let this be a guide for you, and let it remind you that you're not broken. You're just becoming. And if this hits something in you, drop a comment down below and let me know, what uncomfortable territory are you stepping into right now? Because you're not the only one on this journey. None of us grows alone. And as you're on this journey, if you're wondering how to handle your emotions and be more emotionally intelligent, this video is just for you. Until next time.